Am I the a-hole for refusing to have a fully child-free wedding? The results are in, and you are, in fact, the a-hole, according to Reddit. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Jamie Wolfer. I'm your online wedding planner. I don't know, I have a scrunchie on. And today's video is going to be AITA wedding threads on child-free weddings. Or kicking children out of weddings. You know, just kids at weddings in general. Which can be a very divisive topic for people. Some people love child-free weddings. Some people hate child-free weddings. Some people want kids there, some people don't. Some people have like mixed exceptions. Some parents get real cagey about it. Some parents really want a night out. So I figured let's make a video about it. I have done a whole video on how to say no kids at your wedding. I'm gonna go ahead and link it right here if you're interested. If you're like, hey, yeah, that's cool. This is an entertaining video, but how do I do that? I, for one, am all for having kids at weddings. I love kids. I have 4 of them myself. And yeah, I think that having kids at weddings is super fun and adorable, and I love watching them on the dance floor, but I can understand why people don't want to. There we go. There's my opinion on child-free weddings. Totally get it. If you want me to have a night out without my children, say less, fam. But I also love having my kids there, so I could go either way. Now let's dive into this first post, shall we? Am I the a-hole for refusing to have a fully child-free wedding? And the votes say yes. OP, you are indeed the a-hole. So recently I proposed to my longtime girlfriend and we are planning for a wedding in summer next year. Everything is still very early stages. My fiance has expressed that she wants a child-free wedding, which I'm down for, but I want to make one exception, my son. I had him from a previous relationship and we have evenly split custody of him. Until now, my fiance has gotten along great with him. We've had days out as a family, she's gone to see his games, he plays ice hockey. She's even taken him out on fun days, just the 2 of them. Oh, that's sweet and intentional. I brought up that I wanted to make an exception to the no kids rule for my son. She shot down the idea straight away and said she didn't want anyone under 16 there as she doesn't want to feel like she or anyone else has to babysit on her special day. You don't babysit a 15-year-old. I have twin 14-year-olds. You don't babysit them. They are babysitters. I told her that no one would have to babysit him. There we go. He's 15 and she knows he's well behaved and a generally quiet kid. Then she changed her reasoning and asked why I wanted my old family and life on the day I was supposed to be making a commitment to her and our new family. I'm sorry. What? I told her, while I will be making commitment to her, my son will still very much be my son and family. She then equated it to wanting my ex at our wedding, which I do not and never asked. I told her that I don't care about the aesthetics of the wedding and she can pick everything else, the food, the aesthetic, the music, the dress. Obviously, she's gonna pick the dress. But all I want is my family at the wedding, my parents, my sisters, and my son. That's my only ultimatum when it comes to our wedding. Wow. How is this person voted the a-hole? What is wrong with you Redditors? She started calling me controlling by giving me an ultimatum and said I had initially agreed to a child-free wedding and now I'm gaslighting her. No, okay. I said we can have a mainly child-free wedding, but with this one exception, an expectation that guests can't even complain about being unfair since the only child is the son of the groom. She called me a dick and is now not talking to me. I really think this is a reasonable want, but maybe I'm not seeing something. So am I the a-hole? How? This has got to be some sort of confusion happening here because I do not understand how the original poster is considered an a-hole in this situation. Okay, where do you even get started with this? So usually I read the comments first, but I had someone comment recently. They're like, can you share your thoughts and opinions first before reading them? And I'm like, yeah, let's try a new format, shall we? Here are my thoughts and opinions. 1, we all say stupid stuff in arguments. Like, we don't know if this was all one argument building and building and building and building, right? Where people just kind of start to get ugly. The fiance might have since rescinded that. I don't know about you. I've never said anything I didn't mean in an argument. So we're going to pour grace on this, right? And just like hope that there's been some resolution. I haven't seen any updates. I literally just read it for the first time with you. So, little bit grace on that. Little bit. However, when you cross the line into the territory of that is your old family, we are creating something new moving forward, that is a definitive line in the sand, right? That is saying things you can't take back. That is ugly fighting. So even if this was the middle of a fight, the middle of an argument, that is ugly fighting. It's really hard to recover from that. Not saying it's impossible to recover from that, but it's really hard. But we all say things we don't mean. So let's assume that that's what she meant. She's just throwing stuff out because she's mad and she's being defensive. And instead of accepting that, right, she is snarling back. And now she's saying things, she's throwing up barbs. She's saying things she may mean or she may not mean. But it's almost like my husband and I, we don't use the word divorce in arguments. We don't say, maybe we should just get a divorce. That may be unpopular. I don't know. But we don't cross that line, right? Like we know that that's not even something you throw out as a barb, because we don't want to get casual or comfortable even with the association of that word. This is not something you casually throw out as a barb, that your child, 15, you can't say that like he needs to be babysat, but then is also basically old enough to be excluded from the new family. So that's my thoughts on it. I totally understand her desire for a child-free wedding. Everyone's entitled to that if that's something that they choose. But this is weird. And then to try to flip it around on him and saying like, you are gaslighting me. I hate when people find these terms on the internet and then liberally apply them to everything, right? Because he's not. He's not gaslighting you. It sounds like his opinions maintain the same status quo the entire time, right? I'm not disagreeing with you. Everyone's okay with this exception to the rule, right? Because it is my flesh and my blood. This might be a pretty severe sticking point for me personally if this happened with my husband and I. And it might be something that could only be corrected with mediator, a third party, a therapist, premarital counseling. And even then, it's going to take a while for that to stop stinging if we want to actually fix and repair this. Here's what I don't understand is so many people are saying not the a-hole. Are they voting that she's the I don't Reddit. Okay? I literally only go on Reddit for these videos, so I'm super confused how this is happening because so many people are like, don't marry her, not the a-hole. Okay. So the most upvoted is wow, she doesn't even want your own child to come to your own wedding. And not a crying baby or a terrible two, but a 15-year-old, a kid that will be old enough to drive next year. When the wedding is when? If this goes on as she wants, do you think your kid won't remember? Oh my gosh. Has the kid heard this? I just unlocked a whole new level of feelings on this. This is awful. Yeah, I'm sorry about this. This is all kinds of evil stepmother red flags. The whole thing about you making a new commitment to her and her family and equating having your son there to having your ex-wife there, that is so not fair, not valid. That's ugly fighting. That is ugly fighting. We don't do that, right? We don't cross that line. We don't ugly fight like that. Dude, get out now while you just have to eat the non-refundable deposits for the wedding. Save yourself and your kid a world of hurt. You will be the a-hole if you marry this woman. Edit to add, you have never had a fight like this before because up to this point, she has been putting on a show. I don't know about that, but now she's comfortable enough in the relationship to show you who she really is. I don't know about that. Remember, we can fight really ugly. Really ugly, and we can say things we don't mean. I've never done that, but I heard other people have talked about maybe doing that. Exactly. She will be the type to kick out his son once he turns 18 or make him move back to his mother's when she gets pregnant. She is pushing him out already. This person said, she arbitrarily chose an age 1 year older than your son to be the cutoff and talked about old family versus new family. This has nothing to do with wanting children at the wedding. This has everything to do with her plan to push your son out of the picture. Again, she may not have some sort of nefarious written down master plan, right? It could just be she said something unkind. So we kind of have to keep filtering that through. This woman is toxic and will treat your son like an inconvenience and undesired nuisance in your lives. Protect your son from this. I agree. If this is really indicative of how she feels, you should protect your child from this. If you go through this marriage, he will know he is unwelcome and your future relationship with him will be destroyed. Not the a-hole. OP, your fiance just showed her hand. She considers your son a part of your old life and your old family. That little slip up may very well mean she's only tolerating your son and will start trying to push him aside once you're married, not to mention favoring any children you have with her over him. I think very carefully about whether this is the woman you want to marry or not after her ultimatum. This poster highlighted this one part. She then changed her reasoning and asked why I wanted my old family. Like she's scrambling, right? And we've seen what happens when someone's scrambling in an argument. They'll just start throwing out whatever they can, especially if they feel cornered, they feel embarrassed, they feel called out, right? Maybe at a certain point she started to feel silly for what she was saying and then just got defensive and then got ugly. But if she is swapping around her reasoning and then she's projecting and then she's actually gaslighting you by saying you're gaslighting her, you know, that's the kind of thing where you're just like, oh my gosh. The bigger issue I think here is you are going to continue to have fights throughout your marriage. You will fight. There will be things that you will not agree on at a very, very basic level. You will have to call out your fiance and potentially your wife on things that you disagree with her on. And if this is what she does every time you fight, She flips it around on you. She changes her reasoning. That is going to lead to a difficult relationship. I'm not going to say irreparable. If this is how she fights when she's backed into a corner, this is important to pay attention to. Look back at the pattern. Look back at the history of your relationship together. When you get into these big fights, is this something that your fiance does, right? When they're backed into a corner, are they spitting out barbs? Are they saying any ugly thing that they can to get you to stop talking? And that's not to say that there isn't a way to fix this. I think premarital counseling is insanely powerful. My husband and I are in counseling right now. I am happy to share that. I think that's fantastic. I think more couples should be doing it. In fact, we just kind of use it as like, we talk about parenting, we talk about arguments. It's good to have a third party for us. We love doing it. And we go like twice a month or whatever. And it's been fantastic. We really enjoy it. So I would recommend, if you really do truly want to go through with something like this seems more indicative of a character flaw than it does necessarily just wanting to not have the kid there, right? This sounds like ugly fighting to me. This doesn't sound like she hates your kid. I don't think she is the evil stepmother from Cinderella reincarnate. I don't think that's what's happening here. I think she's flailing, right? I think you need to get to the bottom of this with a mediator and then make a real judgment on what's going on here. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments down below. Is OP the a-hole? I think there's something messed up with the voting here. Obviously, we know that the OP is not, right? That you are not the a-hole for wanting your kid there. But I think you've got a little bit of unpacking to do. And all of that feedback had nothing to do with me being a wedding player. Nothing at all. But it said wedding in the title, so it counts. Okay, am I the a-hole for making a kid leave my wedding? The Redditors say no, you are not the a-hole, and this I would love to see why. After a long wedding day, we hit the reception. Things are fine until my hubby's cousin's Anna's kid, hubby's cousin, Anna's kid, started making a fuss about cake, like screaming and just a huge meltdown, autistic, over not having ice cream with his cake, like screaming. Throwing himself in the middle of the dance floor, kicking his feet. He's offered several slices of the cake only to throw them. Oh, the floor is a sticky mess. Was planning on doing the father-daughter dance right after this. I'm almost in tears at this point, and thank God my sister and maid of honor and mother had enough of this and told Anna and her son they needed to go. Oh. Anna and her son refused to leave, and the boy started acting worse. Oh, man. To where my sister gets pissed off and told her to leave or the police will be called. That's not an empty threat from my sis because her father-in-law is a cop. Ha! Okay. Anna leaves, but we are now like an hour behind schedule because of the meltdown over ice cream. I'm not feeling any and leaving without the rest of the dances. I don't know what that means. The DJ plays for his scheduled time, but no one is feeling it after the kid's meltdown. New hubby gets a call on our honeymoon, and his family, grandma, aunt, cousins, now want all of the wedding gifts back because my family decided to bully an autistic child who was allowed to throw a fit in the middle of the dance floor for an hour. Okay. If I was running this wedding, this is nuanced. If I was running this wedding, I would go buy ice cream. I would. I'd be like, let's go. Let's buy ice cream. Why was this kid throwing a fit for a whole hour? Why did nobody go, okay, what ice cream do we need? Are we that far away from a grocery store? We could have really solved this much more quickly. That is the power of having a wedding coordinator, folks. You shouldn't have had to deal with a child scream on your dance floor, but also we have an autistic diagnosis here, right? Like we have a child who has routines, sensory issues. I think that you were within your right to ask them to leave. I am shocked that there wasn't other remedies made before we got to this point. Why did no one go buy ice cream? Why? Like, why did that happen? And also, the mom refusing to leave, that gets a little sticky. You know, for lack of a better word, that makes things difficult. But from a professional planning perspective, because a lot of people get concerned, this is why they want kid-free weddings. Not necessarily because of an autistic child, but just because of children in general. They're worried that the child is going to make a lot of noise and be a distraction. They're worried that something like this will happen, even with a child that doesn't have an autism diagnosis. I can say with full assurity, there's one wedding I've ever been to, that a child cried during the ceremony, and it took the parents a few minutes to realize that they needed to leave the area. That was surprising to me. I was like, for real? But I was attending it because had I been the coordinator, I probably would have walked over and been like, hi, I'm so sorry. It might be a little bit louder than you think. Can we have you step towards the back or outside of because we were in a room for this ceremony, or outside until we get the kid to calm down. It's just, we can't really hear what's happening in the ceremony. I would be the bad guy for my clients, but I was actually an attendee. So that would have been awkward. This is why you need a wedding coordinator. This is why you need a wedding planner to coordinate your wedding day. You need someone to go, someone just buy him ice cream. What's the problem? Here's a solution. I'll put it on my credit card. Like, I don't even care. Let's get this as cleanly wrapped up as possible. Let's make sure this kid who's clearly struggling, right? Like, has his routines, has specificity to like what he needs. I get that. Address that first. Why was this going on for an hour? Never should have happened. Then we get to the point where like family starts to step in and go, you need to leave, right? And then the mom's refusing. That's the part that gets me, because the mom could not have been content, right? Or maybe she was. I find that wild, that her son is clearly having a problem. He has reached his capacity. His needs are not being met that he wants or needs met, right? So as a mom in this situation, I can understand, no, I want my kid to experience this, but at a certain point, isn't it better for the child to leave? Isn't it better for the child to stop feeling the need for the outburst? Isn't it better to give them an environment that they're comfortable with, right? To satiate whatever is off, whatever is causing that tension or that friction in them emotionally. So I don't understand the mom not wanting to leave. I do feel like where the line got crossed, potentially, was the cops being called. I don't know if that threat would ever come out of my mouth, to be totally honest with you. That feels pretty big. However, at the same time, if nothing else is working, and this mom is just letting her child throw cake around, like, that is essentially going to put the kibosh on the event, which it did, right? No one wants to dance afterwards. The vibe is killed. It's really hard to rally after that. A good DJ could really get people going. But then for half the family to say, like, we want our gifts back because you bullied a kid. And it's like, were you there? Did you see it? This is the kind of stuff that unfortunately needs to be cleaned up. These conversations need to be had. You're probably going to have to go talk to Anna, right? You're probably going to have to talk to the grandma, the aunt, the cousins. We're going to have conversations, because weddings have a lot of tension around them because they're such a poignant part in your life, right? And people feel like they're entitled to opinions on your wedding day and what you do on your wedding day and how you handle your wedding day. And I think for part of that, like, you do owe them a conversation if they're being this hell-bent on like, no, you bullied a kid. I think it's within your rights to go back to them and say, did we? Did we really? Were we doing him a service by letting him continue to behave like that? Right? Please hear me. I'm not saying punish the kid. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is we're just fostering his fit, right? We are not creating a conducive environment for him to calm down. And he deserves to have a calm environment. Someone should have bought him ice cream. When that didn't happen, we should figure out how to remove him for his sake, and not just because he was chucking cake on the dance floor. This is a very, very powerful reminder, though, folks, that what you and your fiance do on your wedding day, where you go, your attitude, your mood will really strongly dictate how the guests feel, right? So in a situation like this, if you had been able to rally, which I know, OP, you were like struggling, right? I get that. Had you been able to rally and just been like, all right, we're mopping up the dance floor, we're going to dance, this is the only time I get to do this, let's go, fam, the night might have been recovered. Had the DJ really worked at it, the night might have been recovered. But after that, I can see how that's just disheartening and that's hard. So I'm going to go ahead and read through some of the comments. Let me know what you guys think. Is OP the a-hole for making this child leave? We want to be kind, we want to be sympathetic, but we also want to make sure that the child is in a safe environment that fosters calm behavior for their sake. Yes, I think that removing a child who's screaming and throwing food from a reception makes sense on both sides. From the couple's perspective and for the health and wellness of the child, right? He's not in physical danger unless he slips on some icing, but we are not helping him create a calm space. And I think that that really needs to be taken into account. And I'm bummed the mom didn't prioritize that. Not the a-hole. As an autistic person, I feel strongly about this. The kid didn't have a meltdown because of ice cream. It was the thing that broke the camel's back, because a wedding is almost guaranteed to cause overstimulation, which leads more often than not into a meltdown. Wow, I appreciate your insight on this. How the parent didn't recognize this or even seem to think about it could be a possibility, and then refusing to leave, basically keeping your child in a very vulnerable state in front of a whole wedding party, genuinely makes me angry. Either way, you handled it the best you could. Definitely not the a-hole. Someone replied, exactly. I remember getting overstimulated and feeling guilty over ruining everyone's time instead of enjoying the occasion like everyone else. So many occasions where I would have rather gone home, but my parents didn't want to leave and no one had a good time. This, protect the child. Loud music, having to sit quietly during the ceremony, being probably in uncomfortable clothing, right? A lot of autistic kids can have sensory issues and the clothing doesn't feel comfortable. You know, there's so many things. It's not the food they're comfortable with. It's not what they're used to. They're in a different room, lots of people, lots of noises. So it was so unfair to the child. It's just unfair to the child. I think that the bride had every right to ask for this, but this is super unfair to the child. Not the a-hole. WTF? If the kid has regular meltdowns, why would she even bring him and then let his meltdown go on for an hour? This is ridiculous. Exactly. It's not fair to anyone. Returning gifts is not a thing absent the wedding not happening or being annulled or similar. There was a wedding. It happened. Those people were there. That stuff happened at the wedding they didn't like is too bad. Send all their stuff back and block them everywhere forever. No, that's not mature. This is the rest of your lives. Like, every Christmas, you want to not celebrate with family? You want your husband to not see his family every year because we couldn't have a conversation about this? That's not mature. We are not sending it all back and blocking them forever, okay? I'm all about boundaries, but we all have to do our due diligence to explain why they're in place, okay? We can't just throw them up willy-nilly without having a conversation about them for the first time. Follow up, if people start crossing them, that's when we can say, nope, but you have to at least establish them first. And I don't think just having the child and the parent removed from the wedding is establishing the boundary. We have to have a conversation about it first. Give people the right to respond. And if they respond well, great. If they don't, then you and your husband have a conversation about this moving forward, about what boundaries you want to have in place for these family members that have a pretty grandiose request, right? Send all of our gifts back. Sorry, back to this. Send all their stuff back and block them everywhere forever. They have demonstrated by their actions they care nothing for you and your hubby. That is not true. They're just mad and they want you to apologize, right? They're just acting childish about it. And one person probably said, I'm gonna ask for my gift back. And then it just spread like wildfire throughout them. Okay, so pump the brakes. They are not demonstrating that they care nothing for you and your hubby. That's dramatic at best. Mom should certainly understand her kid's needs, special or otherwise, and be prepared to deal with them whenever out in public. No way should he have been left to continue his meltdown at your event. Take him to the car or their room. I don't know the correct terminology for autism. He stabilizes and returns to acceptable behavior. Oh my gosh. If the OP sends back the gift, she should also send them an invoice for the cost of the reception, prorated to after the start of the meltdown, and possibly have the invoices be individualized and have the value of the gift deducted, plus shipping/postage tacked on to make it 100% fair. They're not going to pay, but maybe the message would get through some of their thick skulls. This is not how we handle familial conflict, ladies and gentlemen. We don't do this. This is a no. This repairs nothing. This is petty. One thing I'm not doing in 2024 is I'm not holding back my opinions. That's not how adults behave. We don't take their petty behavior and dish it right back even worse, okay? That's not going to foster any great relationships. Oh, okay. Who was the a-hole who gave the kid a second and third piece of cake to chuck in the middle of the dance floor? Cake should be presented to kids, autistic or not, at the table when their butt is in the seat. I mean, valid. Maybe the kid was sitting down, but I highly doubt if they're in this worked up of a state that they would go sit down. But who kept giving them cake? After the second slice, stop. This is the last one, then we'll head on to our last one for the day. Not the a-hole. Parent of an autistic teen here. If the child is having a reaction, they need to be removed from the environment to somewhere private, calm, and allowed to calm down. Yes, you don't just leave them there to do such like this. You may not be able to stop the meltdown, but you get them to a safer, quieter, calmer environment where it's not a disruption, and most importantly, they're not subject to whatever stimulus provoked this. Yes! Sorry. Also, in my experience, not having cake with ice cream is not cause for a meltdown. A meltdown is usually sensory stimuli, stress, fear, or such. This sounds like a temper tantrum any child has, but because they're autistic, the parents choose to think it's related and don't do anything. You're right, there's such a difference between a tantrum and a meltdown. Makes me think the parents use his autism diagnosis as an excuse to not parent. All right, OP, I do not think you're the a-hole in this situation. The saddest part for me is the child. That's the saddest part for me. I do not have children who suffer with autism, but even as a parent, I can see the kid, too much is going on. You gotta go. You gotta protect your child. Provide a safe, quiet, calm environment. Get the stimulus out of there. But I mean, this is kind of profound. There's a difference between a tantrum and a meltdown. I think you were within your right to have this conversation with them. And I think that going to talk to these other family members, at least just once, it's gonna be uncomfortable and you're not gonna like it. But at least then you can say your piece, not on the 10th day of an actual wedding day. You can say your piece and say, here's what was going on. It's not fair to the child. It was not fair to our guests. It just was not fair all around. And unfortunately, Anna did not handle this well. The child deserved better. The wedding deserved better. We deserved better for our wedding day. We're not trying to bully him. He needed a safer, calmer, quieter place to calm down, right? He was owed that and he was not given that. And I do think that there is perhaps some truth to his last statement. It makes me think that parents use his autism diagnosis as an excuse to not parent. It probably is hard to delineate the difference between a meltdown and a tantrum, right? That last one makes the most sense to me, though. All right, last AITA of the day. Am I the a-hole for telling my kids that if they don't go to my wedding, I will not be attending theirs? Everyone says not the a-hole. Interesting. That's a pretty bold statement to make. Let's dive in, shall we? Because this is already a very long video. I'll start at the beginning. My ex-husband was a good father, but a terrible husband. I divorced him when my oldest was 14 and my youngest was 10. Well, he ended up spiraling and the kids were exposed to that. I was blamed for ruining dad. Oh, mama. He got better after a few years, but ended up doing it again when he learned I was dating. So the kids kept trying to get me not to date since it affected their dad. Oh. It was an awful time since to the kids, I was responsible for what he did and reacted to things. Okay, so we need to start having conversations about emotional regulation with our children at a much earlier age because they need to know the difference between dad is having his own emotional reaction that is independent of mom's actions, right? Or he's choosing to emotionally or has emotional reactions, but mom's actions are not causing them, right? Mom dating is not causing them. Now, if mom is sending dad a bunch of texts saying, I'm dating, and rubbing it in his face, that's a different thing. We're missing an opportunity to teach our kids emotional regulation on this, okay? Even using the example of their own father, potentially in a very respectful manner. I think that's possible here. I can't help but insert my opinion everywhere, okay? In the end, I just kept dating on the low end, which wasn't hard since I wasn't introducing the kids to the men anyways. All I had to change was not posting on social media. Also, yes, I sent the kids to therapy. Good. They all stopped when they hit 18 or my middle child refused to talk, so I pulled him. Okay. Wow, that feels big. Okay. The oldest is now 25 and the youngest is 21, and I got proposed to. I sat them down and told them they were not happy and were pissed I was doing this to dad. Lots of talks later, and I thought it was good. The wedding's in 2 weeks. I got a text from all the kids saying they will not be at my wedding, that they need to support dad during this time. It's been 11 years, and the kids are still acting. They're grown adults, and they're still doing this. Teach your children emotional regulation, folks. Thank you. I had enough and texted them that if they do not go to my wedding, it will damage our relationship and I will not be attending their own weddings when they get married. This is back to that like petty reaction. Like I get it, but you didn't need to lash out and say that. We could have handled this differently for sure in a healthier and at least more upward spiral instead of just like letting it all crumble. They were pissed and it started an argument and all of them think I'm a huge jerk. I truly hate that I can't do anything that makes me happy since it will affect my ex. Okay, update. I realize I'm okay letting them go. I can't do it anymore. I sent a text. It is up to them if they go or not. If they do not go, I have hope to fix this relationship if I'm not just done. I can't keep playing this game. It's for everything. Anytime I have something good, his feelings have to come first. I can't do that anymore. It hurts so much. I could tell them everything he has done, but I don't feel like blowing up their image of them. Update number 2. Someone private messaging me convinced me to lay it all down for them, so I did. Well, I got my response. They called me a liar. He even was showing old screenshots that were in our divorce case. I think it's over. Thank you everyone that tried to help. I know this is a no-win situation. Unpopular opinion. Weddings are not bargaining chips for arguments. We don't stake our relationships on attendance of weddings. I've shared this story before. I'll make it quick. This video is long. Let me know if you're enjoying the long format videos for these. My husband and I had a relation that was very strained at the time of our wedding. He did not want to invite this person. And I said, this is not the hill that we die on. A wedding is not the hill that we die on. Okay? If we want to have another conversation later, fine. We're not concerned about this person being disruptive. Our relationship is just strained, okay? So this is not where we put our flag in the hill and say, this is where we die. That is my opinion when it comes to weddings. If you have conversations before and after, that is a healthy way of handling this. You have a conversation, say, this is the expected behavior of you. This is what I'm feeling. This is what I'm thinking. We have a conversation like adults do, right? Instead of saying, my wedding is a bargaining chip to get you to behave the way that I want you to behave. It will not turn out well in any direction because it kind of puts your wedding day on this pedestal, which is completely unnecessary. The industry does that. We do that enough to ourselves, right? Like we don't need to elevate this and make it more intense than it already is by adding relationships on top of this. Our relationship, your invitation to this wedding is contingent on you following these steps that I want you to have, because not having an invite to a wedding can sometimes feel like a colossal fallout to a relationship. It's hard to recover from that. We can fix the relationship, we can talk about it, we can end the relationship outside of the wedding day. You already had a whole big issue. You know, it sounds like there's a lot to unpack here, right? That's not your question. Your question is saying, am I the a-hole for saying I won't go to their weddings? I think you are. I think you are. Because that is not gonna help anything. I'm going to shame you. I'm going to control your current behavior with threats of not attending your wedding later. How does that help? How does that improve the situation? How does that improve the relationship? It doesn't. It's just throwing back barbs because you want them to do what you want them to do. Even if they're being punks, right? They are. They're also the a-holes. They're not handling this correctly. I'm so sad for you. That doesn't mean you handled this all correctly, okay? So your question is, am I the a-hole for saying I won't go to their wedding if they don't come to mine? Yes, I do think that's an a-hole move. However, in the whole of this story, I do not think you were the a-hole. I just don't think you handled that moment well. And my guess is you probably regret saying that. Maybe, somewhere in your heart. Again, we talked earlier about fighting ugly and saying things that we don't mean, and I think this could be one of those that, like, the conversation might have gone a lot better if you didn't say that. We all struggle with that. We all deal with it. Let's read some of the comments, shall we? Not the a-hole. They are adults now and should realize that you are under no obligation to stay single to appease your ex. They are not the only people who have had parents divorce, and yet it seems like they can't get over it. Emotional regulation, people! And after all this time, your ex is still emotionally impacted by your personal life, then he needs to get on with his life and get help because it's not healthy. Also, assuming that they want you to go to their weddings in the future, are they expecting you to go solo and not bring your husband? Interesting. Yeah, we gotta unpack that. I mean, we don't have to right now, but like you gotta unpack that. Of course, because it would be so hard on dad to see her new husband. Sounds like dad needs some therapy or something. Dad is manipulative. There, I said it. Dad is manipulating the kids to be beholden to his emotions, right? There's no reason that for a decade we should be coddling this grown adult man and his emotions about a divorce. There's no reason. Not the a-hole. You're allowed to move on. You don't need to put your personal life on hold just because it doesn't sit well with your ex. Amen. Your children need to be supportive of both their parents. They are no longer bratty teenagers. They are adults now. On the other hand, some info is missing. How is your relationship with your children? Did they live with you after the divorce? Ooh, this is interesting. Thank you for adding that. I hadn't considered that because we also don't know the character of mom, right? We also don't know what their relationship was like beforehand. Clearly, we see that the kids have been defending the dad and siding with the dad. There is missing context. That's great. That's actually a very valid point. We don't have time to dive into that one, but makes you want to add a grain of salt to the story, right? When it comes to the ultimatum, I don't think you are an a-hole, but still the approach might not work. It may have been more effective to communicate how hurt you felt and why, including understanding in detail why they are so against you dating anyone else and not supportive of you. Because now if they come, you would not feel good about it, as you may feel that you forced them. I would say, though, that it seems your children have way bigger issues with you getting married to someone else than just your ex, since it's a big step to decide not to come to your wedding. So try to dig a little deeper and understand what it is. I see that. My dad played the victim with my brothers and claimed my mom broke up the family. It was his treatment of her and everyone else that was a big part of the breakup. At what point can OP move on with her life? It's been over 10 years and their dad is still milking it. Well, I mean, based on the information we understand, yeah, milking it might be an appropriate term. Do people want her to stay and give in every time he acts upset because he couldn't cope with a change half of the marriages go through? Not the a-hole. Ex-parental alienation campaign against you seems to have been pretty effective. And he's made the kids believe that you are responsible for his happiness and well-being. Unfortunately, there is nothing more you can do now. Just give the kids time to wise up and see their father for who he is. Don't give ultimatums. Don't give ultimatums. Write that down. Cross-stitch that on a freaking pillow. Just issue future invites and leave it at that. Live your life, be happy, and all the best. Not the a-hole. But stop. It's not a bargaining chip. Your wedding's not an ultimatum. Now, if there's stuff leading up to it, sure. But we're not using this as the baton that we're whacking people with to get them to do what we want them to do. You better do what I want you to do or you can't come. Now, I'm not saying you have to bring people to your wedding who are abusive or who you have a strained relationship with or who, I'm not saying you have to do that, right? You know your situation so much better than some random lady on the internet. That's not what I'm saying. But if you want to rage in the comments because you think that's what I'm saying, it's totally fine. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that can't be a one and done scenario. Your wedding is not the ultimatum. It's not a baton to whack people over the head with. It's not a bargaining chip, okay? Conversations, context, Those things matter. So that is where we're going to leave today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. This one was a long one, okay? I hope you enjoyed it. Should kids be invited to weddings? Well, the last person said no. Well, sort of. She's uninviting her own kids. I don't know. That's complicated. I love kids at weddings. But if someone invited me to their wedding and said no kids, I'd be like, okay. I mean, currently I have a baby who's 8 months old, nursing, so I can't leave her just yet. But I get it. I get it. I would love to have a night out without children. So that's what we have for this week's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts, comments down below for number 1, number 2, and number 3. What's your vote? A-hole, not the a-hole? Let me know. As always, I believe the original Reddit threads linked in the description box in case you want to dive in a little bit deeper, because some of these comments get a little bit spicy. A little bit spicy. If you haven't done so already, jump on down there, hit the like button if you like the AITA videos. I mean, it seems to me like you do, so get on there. Okay. And until next week, bye, guys. Some people are unhinged.